All right, let's talk about a team that had a real unique offseason, which was the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that obviously coming off of a season to forget, had some real issues, but what have they done to fix those issues? And also, what are some of the players they lost and who will they have to replace? Let's get into all of it. So first, as always, I want to start off with looking at PFF grades for each positional category. Again, it's not a perfect system, but a way to kind of get an idea of at least where PFF felt that the Raiders were at last year in specific groups. Passing being 31st was the kind of clear thing they had to improve upon. Didn't put a ton of resources last year into the quarterback position and ultimately paid the price with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew being the two guys. Listen, wasn't a lot of great options where they were drafting and everything, but still, they did make an improvement, make an effort to improve that, which we'll talk about in a bit. Honestly, the rest of the offense was fine. I mean, the running wasn't very good. That was graded worst in football. But everything else, the receiving was fine. Pass blocking was fine. And run blocking maybe a little bit below average. But ultimately, nothing amazing here, but nothing horrible either. Really, getting the running game and the passing game going are kind of the two biggest things they needed to improve upon, specifically the passing because of how important that is in today's NFL. The defense, so run defense was 12th best, but, other than that, really this was a team kind of, Max Crosby carrying a lot of the load right here, which, hey, he's a great player. He can do a lot of that, but ultimately only so much. There's only so much of that he can do. As for their losses, first, we're just simply going to talk about the players who are definite losses, guys who have not signed with a new team as of recording this video. Then we'll talk about the guys who maybe they could still get back, maybe not. First, Gardner Minshew, who, again, I kind of liked the signing when they added him, kind of as like, hey, he's someone who maybe could be a starter, like a Baker Mayfield type, or maybe he just ends up being an okay backup. Honestly, he just wasn't that good last year and wasn't what they hoped that they were going to get from him. So they instead said, let's just go with the younger guy in Aiden O'Connell. But yeah, that ultimately ended up being a bit of a disappointment. They let him go to the Chiefs to be, I'm sure, a fine backup there. They then lost Andre James, who has had some good years with the Raiders, but ultimately was a starter for 4 seasons for them. So losing him isn't the best thing in the world, but ultimately it's something they can be okay without. Marcus Epps, who again last year only had 176 snaps, but did have over 1,000 the year prior. Not a superstar, but someone that again is a player they will have to replace. You have Robert Spillane, a linebacker who, again, I think was pretty solid these past couple of years. So it's kind of sometimes you get into these weird situations where there's players you like, even though you're not a great team, but ultimately is the price tag worth re-signing them? And in some of these instances, they said no. You also have Harrison Bryant, the tight end, who he went to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, again, played a couple hundred snaps last year. Not a huge deal. Alexander Madison, who, again, I thought was fine last year, but was ultimately a part of the 32nd ranked run offense. They kind of had a bunch of running back threes playing running back one role. That's not going to be great for you usually. They did also lose Trayvon Moehrig, who was a good safety for them. Not a superstar, and he kind of got paid top market value for a safety. So it's one of those things where, again, I don't blame them for not re-signing him, but it does kind of stink to let these players go when you're not a great team right now. Again, Divine Diablo, another example of fine player, someone they'll have to replace, but not the most difficult player to replace. You have Kayvon Chason, who did show flashes last year, easily had his best year as a pro with the Raiders, coming off of not a great stint with the Jaguars, where he was one of the Jaguars' many players that they drafted due to his athleticism. Showed off that athleticism at times with the Raiders. Wasn't a star, though, so again, you can let him walk, not the end of the world. And Nate Hobbs, who I always kind of liked, but ultimately they decided that price tag wasn't great either. So honestly, he's a slot corner. So honestly, they did lose some decent defensive pieces to a defense that already wasn't great. That's not ideal. For their losses that they could still decide to re-sign if they want to. Again, some of these aren't huge losses, but still worth mentioning. John Jenkins, who's been an interior defensive lineman for quite some time now, 35-year-old player. So always nice to have veterans in the room when you're a rebuilding team, I think. So might be someone you want to keep on to. We'll hang on to. We'll see. Also Amir Abdullah, who has, again, I think is a fine player. Him and Madison were fine. They're just not guys you want as your running back one, in my opinion. Desmond Ridder, who came in relief there. I don't know if you want to re-sign him. You have Aiden O'Connell, who can be your backup now, but maybe if you want another guy, I don't know. And then DJ Turner, who, again, was a nice role player as a receiver, but ultimately, none of these guys are moving the needle too much. So, okay, not a great situation, and there were some issues, but they did do some interesting things to add to this roster. You look at their list of additions, and they kind of did everything that you like to see a rebuilding team do. I mean, first off, they got a starting caliber quarterback for cheap, a third-round pick, and Smith isn't getting paid a ton quarterback-wise this first year. So ultimately, I think you feel pretty good about that if you're a Raiders fan. We'll see how well it works out, but I think the hope for the Raiders is they're not trying to do this tanking thing of let's just be horrible and hopefully we get a good quarterback and then try and be good, because that doesn't always work out. So let's just instead take the Lions approach. Let's just try and slowly get better year after year, get a quarterback who we can trust to be solid, and go from there. After that, it's a lot of, well, let's see what you can do type of guys. Alex Kappa had some solid years with Tampa Bay. He did win a Super Bowl, albeit he got hurt on that playoff run, didn't play in the Super Bowl, but still was a part of that Super Bowl winning team with Tampa Bay. Wasn't great with the Bengals, and honestly, I wouldn't say was great with the Buccaneers either, coming off a bad year. So hey, let's sign him and see if he can kind of be a someone who can come through and at least be all right. I think that's the idea there. So they lose an interior guy, but they do replace him with Alex Kappa. We'll see how well that works, and I don't know if he even needs to start, to be honest, because they have a decent interior as is. So I actually don't even know if he will start, but at least could be a depth. You also have Raheem Mostert, who is a running back, veteran guy. We'll see how well he does. Should be a fine piece for them. So again, probably another guy who you don't want as running back one, but at least a guy in the building. And then just some more like flyers on guys. Devin White, who really showed flashes once again with Tampa Bay, but ultimately just never had consistency. Even at his best, he was blowing coverages before he was getting interceptions and making splash plays, and really good pass rushing linebacker. Who knows? Maybe, having a team like Tampa Bay move off of him, having a team like Philadelphia move off him early on, Houston picked him up, but never really found footing there. Maybe in this situation, quite frankly, this is what I like to see rebuilding teams do. Let's find guys like Devin White. Eric Stokes is another guy who was a first-round pick from the Packers, wasn't fully able to find his footing with them. Let's just add guys like this and see what they can do. Give them playing time, and who knows, maybe they'll figure it out, maybe they won't. If they don't, okay, so be it. It's no harm, no foul, but if they do, you could have I don't want to say franchise cornerstone, but at least like a good player that, you're taking a chance on. Jeremy Chin, another guy who's been a really good safety, had some down years as well. So again, there's a bit of a risk factor here. The Raiders are a team that should be taking risk right now. So definitely a big fan of that. Also for the extensions, so they did extend Max Crosby, who was not on the last year of his deal, but there was some talk, is Crosby going to leave? And quite frankly, listen, I don't hate the idea of if you're a rebuilding team, trade away a star player, even if they're a young star player. Like the Khalil Mack thing, I think could have worked out had they hit on some picks. But ultimately, I do think there is a difference between this and the Myles Garrett situation. Crosby is several years younger than Garrett. Crosby's 27. And also, I think the Raiders could, in theory, be good in the next couple of years if they can start hitting on some draft picks, which they did a great job of last year with Brock Bowers, right? So I do think that that's something why I would say I'm totally fine with, not going to trade route, keeping him. He wants to be a Raider for life too, it seems. So like, if you're a rebuilding team and you can get a guy like that to be loyal to you, like that's pretty cool. Even if he did express some frustrations. Malcolm Kuntz, who's coming off an injury, but again, he was someone who was a pure free agent. You don't want to be letting good free agents leave the building, right? Letting some of these guys go, you kind of have to, right? Like you don't want to overpay for Trayvon Moehrig. Okay, fine, you have to let him go. But for someone like Kuntz, it's a reasonable deal. He's a good player. Maybe him being hurt last year hurt his stock a little bit, so why not just keep him? That makes sense to me. Then a couple other players, Adam Butler, interior defensive lineman, and then also Isaiah Polamau, might maybe how you say his name. Apologies if I mispronounced it. But both were, again, guys who played a lot last year. They each played over 800 snaps last year, but ultimately, I don't know if they were stars. But again, okay, fine. Keeping guys who know the system, or I guess not know the system because it's a new system now, but know the building and have rapport with everyone else. Keeping them in a building, why not? So ultimately, in conclusion, I know it sucks for the Raiders to be in this 2 decades long rebuild at this point. It feels like that's not fair. They made the playoffs a few years ago, but ultimately they haven't won a playoff game since the 2002 season, which is obviously a disappointment. And so it sucks to kind of be rebuilding, but to me, this is the smart way to rebuild. You don't want to go out and just throw money at people just to throw money at people. You want to slowly try and build a better roster so that when you do have an opportunity to get the right player involved, that's how you can make things work better. And that seems to be what they're trying to do right now, and we'll see how well it works. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the Raiders and their offseason. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.